The nerd muscles get to flex. Hey, everybody, welcome to Retro Trekkers, the show where we discuss and recap and review a classic episode of one of the Star Trek shows. Doesn't even matter. We love them all here. So where's my beginning? Where are you? Where are you? I can't believe I can't find you. I know, not smooth at all. I'm really not very good at this. Only been doing it a while, 4 years. I should be so much better.
Retro Trackers. Get down with the retro. Retro Trackers. Capt'n John and Cmdr. Retro Trackers. We love our Star Trek. Retro Trackers.
The nerd muscles get to flex. Hey, it's not just me giving you the Retro Trekker fun. Let's bring in the first officer that gets it all done around here. The guy that keeps me honest and working. And that would be Commander Joe Townsell.
Yes, sir. Hello, Captain.
Are you feeling the funk today, Commander?
I am feeling the funk today more than ever. How can I not with that wonderful intro?
Same here. Now, no one would know from where we are. Hey, Chris is with us. Hiya, Chris.
Chris.
Hey. No one would know, but this is actually going to be kind of a somber episode. Little bit of somber.
Well, maybe a little, but you know, in our personal lives, when someone we love and admire, passes away, we also it's a cliched term, unfortunately, but it's a celebration of life. We are here to celebrate the career of Tony Todd.
I am 100% with you, especially because like you and I aren't kids. We've already lost a lot of people in our lives. Hey, speaking of fun and happy and laughter, but what you learn over the years is you celebrate the good, and
absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of times you this is something that I've done a lot over the past few years. This is Chris making fun of us talking about being old. Your kids to me, LOL.
Very kind of you, Chris.
Absolutely. You learn to appreciate the people while they're still with you. It's one of the great gifts of getting older. And we can't do that with Tony Todd, but we can do that with each other. And that is another thing that we like to do on the show is we like to be kind and we like to share. So, hey, if you're watching, you feel like joining the chat, please do. If you like saying hello to Chris, please do. A couple of our regulars are busy today. They actually let me know on Facebook, which I love.
That's very, very nice. And John, a tad off topic, but
yeah.
Thought you'd appreciate. I should have mentioned this backstage, but are you no breaks Jake today?
Oh my gosh! Oh my!
It's okay if you are.
All right, let me take care of this. Okay. Well, I've been doing. Oh God, is it worth explaining?
Sure.
I've been doing crash testing to make sure that we can. I'm just going to leave it at John. To make sure that we can show the things that we're going to be showing on upcoming episodes of our shows, specifically Retro Rangers. And I'm very pleased to say that we have a lot of clearance. We have a lot of clearance on the things we want to do. So tomorrow's episode of Retro Rangers cleared. Our third episode of our Christmas quadrilogy coming up in December cleared. So we're good. And unfortunately, when I do that, it's not me that hosts that. It's No Breaks Jake.
Hey, Jake.
Which, if you're a WWE fan, you'll also recognize as the American Badass version of The Undertaker. He has red hair, by the way. I find it very insulting they gave him chestnut brown hair. He has red hair, folks.
Well, Jake, you do a great job, my friend, but just a friendly reminder to always change your handle back to John's when you're done.
Oh my God. Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? I didn't give myself my honorific. What am I doing? Is it an honorific or is it a title? What do we call that? Here we
Well, that's your rank.
Oh, that's my rank.
Yes.
So bad I don't even know what my rank is. How did I ever get a captain? No one knows.
I'll tell you, I mean, John often makes the claim that he doesn't know what he's doing, and I always say, no, John, of course, that's just ridiculous. But sometimes it's harder for me to be convincing of that than others. And I'm just saying. But John, 99.9% of the time, you're on the money, my friend. much higher percentage
if I didn't
than
make
me.
mistakes. what would I even be if I didn't own my mistakes? Oh, I got into it today with an AI. Oh my God. Oh my God. This story. Oh, I know it's taking us way off the tribute to Tony Todd. Joe, today an AI gave me attitude.
Oh,
yeah, gave me attitude. I basically said, I need you to give me this thing, and I need you to give it to me in 200 or fewer characters because the other AI that you're writing the description for maxes out at 200. It said, I gave you 200 characters. And then I had to prove to it that it did not, that it gave me more than 200 characters. And then I had to point out to it, lying to me, gaslight me.
I mean, people are so scared of artificial intelligence, but when it can't even count, I think we're safe.
Dude, AI can only be as good as the best human being that it steals from. And I'll tell you right now, they ain't stealing from the best human beings. They're just stealing from whoever. And they are. It's like when you go into a McDonald's and the people behind the counter are bad. Like, yeah. Wait, you have standards. You're supposed to be good. What? And you're giving me attitude? So anyway, AI is that really rude employee that you had to deal with behind the counter. And they probably had their reasons. I'm not saying the AI didn't have its reasons. Anyway.
Well, I'm just glad you put it in its place, John.
Chris says one of the most important things. Chris is full of advice, folks. And be sure to take Chris's advice. I only steal from the best, my other voices. There you go. Same with me. The other voices in my head, I'm always checking out their work and ripping it off. Hey. All right. I don't know that I have a whole lot of background on this episode, really. This was kind of the kind of episode that Deep Space Nine would do now and again. Mm-hmm. And not really an unusual episode for them in terms of where they're drawing from and how they feel about things. How would you characterize this episode, The Visitor from Deep Space Nine, Commander?
Well, Captain, I would say that, and I'm kind of getting to the down and dirty in advance, but it's appropriate at this time too.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, we occasionally got this type of episode in Trek, not just in DS9, but throughout the franchise. Most notably, I think back to, City on the Edge of Forever. I was thinking back on the Inner Light from TNG, and they're in a category of episodes that they almost put the sci-fi aspect, hang it up to make it all work, to give it something to draw together. But really, the story is about people and how they experience loss and what the sacrifice they have to make, to make sure that everything comes out the way it should.
Yeah. It's a real heartbreaker. I don't think I'm giving away much. This one, I will frequently make fun of the human story because you can get that anywhere. But when you get to know your characters really well, this is from the 4th season. It is the 3rd episode of the 4th season. It aired on October 9th, 1995. which sadly for folks like us is yesterday. And it was written by Michael Taylor, very good writer, directed by David Livingston, excellent Star Trek director. Primarily revolves around Jake Sisko, who is played by Cirroc Lofton, who is Kenny Lofton's nephew, if we've never mentioned that before.
Oh, didn't know that.
Oh, he comes from a great family of very talented people, that good old Cirroc. And he eventually ages out of the part as Jake gets older, and then Tony Todd plays him as an older person. I do take exception to how often I've run into the phrase "old Jake Sisko." Phrases all over the internet. Like, well, I mean, he's older Jake Sisko, but
well, he is an old man for a lot of it.
He is.
And it is a young man playing an old man. So we're not insulting Mr. Todd by calling him the character old Jake Sisko, but I see your point.
Yeah. And I also love that Chris gets my point too. Walk down the street, knock on any door for the human story. I sort of hear that in a 1940s reporter voice. And I've always felt that way. It's like the human story. You can get that anywhere. But once you know characters and once you have an idea of where characters are headed, and I think we felt that for a long time watching Deep Space Nine, we realized that Jake didn't want to join the Federation, which is huge. That Jake wants to become a writer. That's a slow building part of his, of his persona of who Jake Sisko is. And now we see Jake Sisko's story. And I think at that we should probably go to the beats.
Let's check it out. Now we will remind people that if you're used to, and of course we'll be back with it next week, I think. But as far as a little bit of levity, but you won't be seeing a lot of Capt'n John and Commander Joe in the Beats video this week. We want to kind of be respectful of the the serious nature of the episode. So not a lot of chuckles here, but we'll provide some laughs along the way regardless.
Absolutely. All right. So of all the things that I did well this week, I forgot to do this. So here we go. I'm loading up the beats. But I edited them.
Well, good, John. I'm so happy. Now,
Retro Trekkers. This week, Trek tribute to Tony Todd. Guest starring in The Visitor.
This is the somber Joe Townsend.
The somber mood is set as elderly Jake Sisko takes a shot from a hypospray. He then answers a knock on the door during a dark and stormy night. The visitor is a young woman who introduces herself as Melanie. She is curious to meet her idol. As Jake serves tea, Melanie tells him that he is her favorite author. She has visited him to learn why he stopped writing after publishing only a single novel and a few short stories. Since then, Jake has become a recluse in the tradition of J.D. Salinger. His answer to the visitor's question is brief and heartbreaking. I stopped because my father died.
Ouch.
Flashback to the USS Defiant. Sisko has taken young Jake on a field trip to the Bajoran wormhole. There's a rare opportunity to watch it undergo an inversion, a natural wonder that happens once every 50 years. Jake is drafting an early version of his novel. Sisko cajoles him to get his nose out of the book, offering this bit of wisdom. I'm no writer, but if I were, it seems to me I'd want to poke my head up every once in a while and take a good look around to see what's going on. It's life, Jake. You can miss it if you don't open your eyes. The phenomenon becomes far from routine and in a tragic way. The warp core becomes unstable. Sisko and Jake are now in engineering. Father and son get the core stabilized, and all is well until a lightning bolt of energy explodes from the warp core and vaporizes Sisko. Or so it seems at the time. Jake is now an orphan. He rattles about DS9, mourning the loss of his dad. He is uncertain where his life will now take him. Everyone on the station tries to comfort him, but to little avail. One sleepless night, Sisko appears to Jake, then quickly vanishes. Was it a ghost or other apparition? Jake isn't sure. That is until Sisko reappears sometime later. This time, Sisko doesn't disappear immediately, and Jake is able to get him to the station's infirmary. Bashir and Dax confirm that this is the real Sisko, and not just a figment of his grieving son's imagination. Sisko has somehow become unstuck in time. Unfortunately, everyone is helpless to prevent their dear departed captain from remaining marooned in a timeless void. Sisko's absence has clear ramifications. The loss of the emissary has shaken the faith of the Bajorans. In addition, the Klingons are amping up their aggressions. Therefore, the Federation decides to cut their losses and withdraw from DS9. Years pass. Young adult Jake and elderly Jake are now played by Tony Todd for the duration of the story. Upon his return to Earth, Jake settled into Louisiana and lived with his grandfather. Later still, he married a Bajoran painter, Corinna. He is slowly but surely rebuilding his life until his father drops in again. Sisko is resigned to his fate. He just wants to know about Jake's life and if he's happy. But Jake cannot bear to see his father being yanked back and forth between real time and seeming oblivion. Jake dedicates all his energy to rescuing his father, immediately abandoning some goals and gradually letting go of others. Jake goes back to school to learn about temporal mechanics and gets his degree on the fast track. The cost of his obsession will be life-changing and tragic. His marriage and writing career will be among the casualties. Jake and his wife have a nice visit from Captain Nog, his Ferengi boyhood chum from his DS9 days. Jake figures that the best chance to rescue his dad will be to take the old Defiant out of mothballs. That 50-year-old faithful inversion phenomenon is about to happen again. Aided by Captain Nog and the now elderly Bashir and Dax, Jake sets up a device that will hopefully pull Sisko back into the timeline permanently. Yet it is not to be. Instead, the device pulls Jake out of time, where he's able to see his father for a short time. In a serene white void, Sisko again implores Jake to move on with his life. Sisko's pleas fall upon Jake's deaf ears. The now elder Jake Sisko gets sucked back into normal space, his resolve and obsession now multiplied and fortified. Back to the elderly Jake and Melanie as he continues his recollection. Jake's expertise in temporal mechanics has not been obtained in vain. He has figured out that he acts like a tether, continuing to drag his father forward through time. Jake deduces that if he were to somehow sever that connection when his father is present, it will act as kind of a reset button. As such, he will instantly send his dad back to the moment of the original accident. The sun rises and Melanie prepares to take her leave. Jake gives her a copy of his last unpublished work, with all his notes, entrusting what remains of his legacy to his new and last friend. As Melanie opens the door, Jake repeats his father's advice to look around every once in a while to experience life. And you can miss it if you don't open your eyes. Jake settles in to wait for his father to appear one final time. He takes a short nap. When he awakes, His father is there, loving and admiring the son who is now an old man. Jake reveals his plan to sever the connection. Sisko finds the hypospray, the one that Jake used at the beginning of the episode. It's poison, and Jake has only a few minutes left to live. Sisko is devastated that his son has sacrificed himself to save his father from an endless existence of purgatory. Jake assures his dad that his sacrifice is not just for Sisko, but for himself as well. He tells his father, "I do this for the boy that I was. He needs you more than you know, and we're going to get a second chance." Moments later, elderly Jake passes away. Sisko is thrust back in time to the moment just prior to the original accident. But this time he's ready. He shields both him and Jake from the energy blast from the warp core. Sisko beholds his beloved son Jake. Jake, who sacrificed his marriage, his writing career, a promising future that may never be, indeed his very life, to save his father. But now the future is not set. Once again, the possibilities are endless.
Oh boy.
John, did I bring a tear to your eye?
You sure did. Oh my God. Here's what I did. Normally, I have another piece of music that I use to put underneath your beats. And
Right.
it's very sort of Star Trek derived and, has that kind of feeling to it. I listen to the beats this time. I don't always, because I like to be surprised. I absolutely agree with Chris here. That was so great. That was beautifully written, Joe.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Your writing matches the beauty of the writing of that episode. It was beautifully done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to be moved because it's just one of those really wonderful stories. I mean, Star Trek is full of very wonderful stories, but again, this is one of just a few throughout the franchise that really affect you emotionally, and
Yeah.
you can't help but think back on your own experiences. And I had that same conversation with my father when I was about Jake's age,
Oh my God.
about writing.
Really?
I mean, he conveyed the same wisdom his father did.
Yeah.
So get your nose out of the drawing pad or out of the paper once in a while, because you draw inspiration from the world, not just from yourself.
Right.
And that of course was very personal and moving to me, and I can tell by John's reaction, I'm sure it touched some emotions for you as well.
One of the things that I admire as an actor is that when they took this job, you had oh my gosh, the actor who plays Sisko,
Avery Brooks.
Avery Brooks, basically looked at the son that was cast for him, Cirroc Lofton, and he said, "This will be my child. I will help raise this boy. I will treat him as my son." And it's not the easiest thing to do. I have played a father on TV before, and they have their parents, these kids. They already have parents. So if you're Avery Brooks in this role and Cirroc Lofton in this role, you realize how important it is to create a bond that people can see and feel, and to also invest in this kid and really put your heart into this kid, because even if they don't want you to be a father figure, they need you to be a father figure, through the role. And it was very funny, the kid that they cast as my son when I was on the Hughleys, Preston. Preston is a super funny kid. And he and I were both big guys, very, very big, heavy guys. And, so he's an 11-year-old. He's hilarious, but he's a big oversized kid. And we just bonded hard, man. But you know, through the things that work, like, you know, his father had a great sense of humor. So, you know, the three of us would hang around and joke, and I could joke with my kid on set. But you have this feeling that like I can really invest. And I love that both Avery Brooks and Sarah Lofton did that. They invested in this relationship, because by the time they get to the 4th season, this heartbreaker comes along. This, you know, the very first episode is brutal of DS9, because you actually see Jake's mother get killed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you see the aftermath, immediate aftermath of her being killed. And now Sisko is an only parent, and now the kid has no mother. And as you pointed out in the beats, the you know, the breathtaking reality that Jake is now an orphan, and he's surrounded by people who know him and love him. They do love him. And actually, I'm going to jump ahead and, you know, give away the ending, that when we get to the final episode, he's lost his dad again.
Yeah, that's true.
And now Cassidy Yates is raising him, though he's an adult at this point, but she's there for him, pregnant with his younger sibling, I believe.
Yes, and we haven't met yet, maybe someday, but
and it's brutal. I mean, this is a family that I loved and felt a part of, as tiny as this family was. So this episode hits me on an absolute heart level. And now I'm realizing I didn't play the segment introduction. Maybe it's not fitting. I don't know.
Oh, it'd been fine. I mean, what's interesting is, and you know, maybe I think I made the right call when I wrote the script for the beats this week.
Yeah,
I had about a dozen jokes in there, regardless. But I edited myself. I said, no, not this time. We'll save them for next time. You know, as far as jokes for the next episode. But I will share one just because I thought it'd been kind of funny. But I made a joke about how Melanie was going to take Jake's last original manuscript and put it on eBay. Yeah, yuck. But
I mean, it's so funny because you are so much a Mad Magazine writer and artist.
Thank you. High praise. Thank you.
And our boy Chris is as well. And I do. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just acknowledging Chris's accomplishment here. Chris, my one and only, was published in 1987.
67. That's amazing. I mean, 87's great too. Don't get me wrong. But Chris points out, I can't write romance or tear jerkers very well. How do you feel about that? Because I know how I feel about certain genres. It's like, oh yeah, I couldn't even approach that. I'd be no good for that. Mostly as an actor or a director, I don't really write. But how do you feel about your writing, Joe? Do you feel that things like romance or heartbreak are easy or hard or accessible or not?
Well, I mean, nothing is easy. Nothing worthwhile is. I don't know if hard is the right word, but it's definitely challenging. And this is, believe me, folks, this is not a plug, but I just as an example to suit my point. My most recent novel, Hell and Wellness, the first half to or so is horror related, but that serves the back half, which is very much a family story of healing and redemption.
Yeah.
And ultimately, just resurgence of faith. So, and that book was very challenging to write.
Yeah.
So, and I've written some poetry, not much, not great in my opinion, but it's more from the heart than it's meant to be like significant prose, but it does help illustrate how, feelings about the subject in those poems. So it's definitely a challenge, but definitely worthwhile when you can hit the mark.
Yeah, it's so funny because we were talking about it earlier, you, I, and Chris, about, human stories. To me, they're never exciting, but
Mhm.
obviously they're very important and they do get right to the heart. They can even bypass the brain and go straight to the feels. And there's nothing wrong with it.
Not
Honestly,
at
when
all.
people
Not
are
at all.
great at writing that's what you're great at writing. That's great writing. But I'm always a person who likes ray guns and monsters and big concepts, and we got a little bit of that here. So that's kind of interesting too. I appreciate that. I think it never stops knocking me out that Jake, when he wanted to, could become a quantum physicist.
It's all about determination and resolve, and he was no less driven than Wesley Crusher, for example.
Right, right. Isn't that interesting? Uh, Chris's story is fascinating. It was a Go For It Mad from
My
74 to
goodness.
76. I was buying those issues. So I very much appreciate the fact that, he helped in any way. That's awesome, Chris.
Absolutely. I started. I can tell you exactly, Chris. In 1973, I picked up my first issue. I should say my mother bought it for me
Yeah.
because I was 9 years old and didn't have the 40 cents on my own. But issue 159 featuring a takeoff of a Clockwork Lemon or
Wow.
Clockwork Orange. It was the satire was called a Clockwork Lemon. Anyway, so I was right there. So you would have been helping my favorite magazine of all time right at the time I started reading it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, the flagship. I mean, I also read Cracked magazine, which I
Oh,
liked
sure.
a great deal because I was a kid and was
Yeah.
very more kid oriented. But Mad was like the Economist. Mad was like the highest level, and I really did appreciate it. Chris says crime, heist, scams, cons are my forte. That's
Very good.
interesting. Those are not easy to write. That is very interesting. And then when we were talking about human drama, Chris says Hitchcock said you'll find drama in every house in America. It's true. It's absolutely true.
And I never have believed in the notion that life makes poor theater. I think that you can find similar stories as you go from house to house, from
Yeah.
family to family, what have you. But it's basically the
Yeah.
result of the experience that makes every situation unique.
And every character is unique. So yes, you're right. I mean, a situation can affect different kinds of people different ways. A situation can separate the good from the bad,
Mhm.
the heart strong from the headstrong. It's absolutely true. It's just unfortunately to me not that exciting. And yet something like I did a play that was called a classic kitchen sink drama. It was just about a family that had secrets. That's classic. That's how it's done. And it was hard. It was a comedy. I went in there as a comic actor,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of reality, and it was really hard. Chris's quote here. Did it get it? Again, how do I get that on the screen? There we go. Dying is easy, comedy is hard. The classic, what is it? Criticism of how things are done. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. I think we might even be past the down and dirty at this point.
Oh, we still have a few things to share. I mean, we are talking about an episode of Star Trek and it's fiction, so there are things to unwrap, of course.
This is a tremendous episode for the other cast. It's such a big deal that Captain Sisko, is he commander at this point or captain yet?
No, I think at this point he is captain because I think he got promoted in the third season.
That's right. And because of the Defiant, they were like, he's a captain of a ship. He's definitely a captain.
Right.
So that's how I always remember that. But the sort of highlight for me was you get to see how everyone else reacts even though they're filtering that through how they feel about Jake. And can I just say, I forgot that he retired to Louisiana. I thought he was on some Dagobah swamp planet or something.
No, because the whole Sisko family, is in Louisiana.
That's right. That's
Grandpa Joe has his. Or is that the guy from Petticoat Junction? Regardless, Grandpa Joe, he has the Creole restaurant there, and
that's right.
In Nolens, and that's the family homestead. So that's where he went.
Played by the inimitable Brock Peters.
Yes,
if I remember correctly. I saw Brock Peters perform as Othello.
Oh, really?
Yes, he was great. I loved him. I loved him in that part. That was so great to get to see.
Not to mention yet another evil admiral in Star Trek's 4 and 6.
Yes, he is a Star Trek guy, so that was really cool. So I also really, really liked the comparison that comes up right in the beginning, where, as you mentioned in the beats, that he's kind of this J.D. Salinger character, that he's very elusive and reclusive, and that he somehow, aspired to become this extremely reclusive person in his grief. It did seem very much like Jake to do that.
Well, I mean, it fits the character absolutely, and kind of doing a mishmash of down and dirty and tidbits. The writer of this story did look upon the J.D. Salinger story about being visited by a student as inspiration for the backstory here.
Yeah, because there are people who are very much touched by your work. I don't want to crash my computer. If I remember correctly, all right, so Jake's novel is called Anselm?
I think that's pretty close. It's difficult to pronounce.
I misremembered it when you and I were having our prep meeting for this show. I was like, Absalom. No, that's not
Avalon.
Have we seen the Muse character yet? On this point?
No. I think she comes later.
Oh, so this is the first time that we know he's a novelist, that he's become a
pretty
publisher.
Much. I think they use this as a basis for starting to flesh it out in the character a little bit more in the remaining seasons.
Yeah. That's really cool. I always liked that too. I always liked that. Well, we know he's going to write at least one novel. I think if my father had ever been able to say, well, I know he's going to be on at least one sitcom, he would have given me a whole lot more credit in my life if he had just known that, that was going to happen.
Of course, one of the cliches, although it's used to great effect here, is that once you hit that reset button, all bets are off, except we're going to retain the good parts.
I like that though, because that's like classic editing. That's like, well, this worked and that worked and this worked, but the rest of it, woof. I don't know. Like, we don't know that he ever married a Bajoran girl. Which,
well, I mean, I always look back to something like All Good Things, last episode of TNG, In-Game, last episode of Voyager, and look at them when they show them now, with actual time having passed, how much different, how much the same it could be.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, Thingy is alive.
Bob, so good to have you with us. Chris, that is called a rewrite. Yes. Yes. And, honestly, there's nothing better, I think, than having like those storylines where you can just say, oh, LeVar Burton, Geordie's character had 2 daughters. And then we get to meet the daughters, and at least, one daughter, and she's super cool. Anyway, that's just the love one feels when watches season 3 of Picard, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Let's move ahead. So, who do you think?
Let me think. It's such a tough choice this time. Look, obviously, I think we'll both agree, John, that actor and character, it's got to be Tony Todd, of course. I mean, the story is Jake Sisko.
Yes.
And I hate to put it in such a way that all the other characters, including Sisko, Benjamin, are supporting, but this is Jake's story, even if it turns out to be not quite what is going to happen to him as it turns out. But and of course, Tony Todd's performance is phenomenal. So got to give it to Mr. Todd and the young adult and elderly Jake Sisko for an MVP.
I have to say, now that we're talking about Tony Todd, and I think this is a good time to really start the tribute, in high gear. I have seen Tony Todd in so many different things. He is a great guest actor for television. He, of course, has a bunch of movies. I always felt like there was more there than the script was asking for from him. And this is that rare moment where he lands in the role and just gives it to you. I really felt, and this is a character I already knew. And here I am watching a new actor play him older, with more life experience. It's just incredible. It's just one of my favorite performances of acting in all of Star Trek.
I totally agree. I mean, it's that rare episode of among a few, like I say, that really affects you emotionally.
And, there are a handful of actors, and Star Trek does have some of the best. I mean, honestly, Star Trek has put some incredible actors on screen. There's a handful of actors who could do this. And Tony Todd is the right guy. He's absolutely the right guy. I mean, it would have been weird if they'd had like Avery Brooks play him or something.
Well, I mean, again, getting into it's unusual for us to dive into tidbits a little bit as we go.
Yeah.
But one thing that was considered for about 5 minutes was trying to age Sarah Lofton. And as great of an actor and as great as a character he developed at that point in the series, obviously that was not going to work.
Yeah. And I just want to say this, take it for what it's worth. Take it with a big grain of salt. Kid actors and adult actors are different. What works for a kid actor doesn't always work for that same actor older. And unfortunately, we've got a show coming up next week where we're going to be talking about Irwin Allen. I've actually been looking at a lot of interviews with Bill Mumy.
Right.
Who I loved on Lost in Space. Just he was the show for me. I loved him on that show. He never had the grip on character or action or presence as an adult, even though he was very good on Babylon 5. He wasn't one of their best. There's just something, and I don't mean to limit or condemn any child actor who wants to become an adult actor, because obviously there are some amazing actors still who were kid actors. Christian Bale being, he's a great actor. He was a great kid actor too. I don't know how Cirroc Lofton felt about being replaced, but if you replaced me with Tony Todd, I'd be the happiest person in the world.
I can't imagine Cirroc Lofton had any issue with it. I'm sure he appreciated his character being elevated in such a way, because it did give them, as they say, a lot to work with over the course of the remaining seasons.
Yeah. I think I'll just say this about kid actors. It's two different styles, adult actor and kid actor. And kid actor, it's something that is a voice that is written for the character. And so there's a lot that the kid actor just has to show up for and do the work, memorize the lines, get the reads right, know what the director wants. It's not an easy job. There's still a ton the kid has to do. But an adult actor kind of knows adult language. And it's kind of easier to break down your emotions, and you're not doing emotions. A lot of times an adult actor knows how to play the cards really close to the chest. A kid actor doesn't necessarily know how to do that. a kid actor is very based on emotion and
Mhm.
first impressions, and an adult actor is very much based on not doing those things because adults withhold that. It's a very different job. And I have to say, having directed both adults and kids, kid actors are great. There's nothing wrong with kid actors.
Oh, of course not.
And not all adult actors are good. Some are just showing up and just reading the lines. But yeah, I feel that Sarah Lofton was a great kid actor. And going back to what I'd said earlier, I think his connection with Avery Brooks, that was very much steady and presented and given by Avery Brooks too. I think he really drove that. Because I think I read somewhere that they always got together for dinner. He would
Oh,
always
they
take
definitely
her.
forged a bond in a relationship.
Yeah. I think they still do. I think they still do have a relationship. Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Sure.
Especially when you are, like the extra parent for that kid for quite a few years. Bob says it's changes. Kids become more naturalistic. I agree.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really good style. We're not going to see it in a lot of our old shows, but more present, more in how kids are doing acting now. There's sort of like the sitcom style, which you'll see on the Nickelodeon series and the Disney series still. You'll see in sitcoms, the wisecracking kids. You'll see that still. But there are more naturalistic shows where kids are allowed to be kids. And it is creating, I think, a better acting experience for those kids.
Now, one method might have been, and I say this with some degree of jest, but they could have just they could have filmed the young Jake parts, waited 30 years and filmed the older Jake parts now. And this is actually something that was done in a movie, which the title escapes me. I want to say it's called Older, but they basically waited for a young kid to grow into the part so he could show his whole life in a 2-hour movie.
Right. Wasn't that a Linklater film, Richard Linklater?
It was. And again, I'm embarrassed to say the title escapes me, but the movie wasn't great, but it was just so interesting. But obviously, I'm glad that they didn't do that here because we would have been deprived of Tony Todd's performance.
And speaking of Tony Todd, do you think maybe it's time that we did our little tribute?
Let's do it. He
All
did
right.
other Star Trek work, of course.
Let me get you there. Okay.
There we go. Yes, of course, he played Worf's brother Kern in both Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine.
He's so great.
I mean, very few actors could have equaled Michael Dorn's presence as Worf, but he definitely managed. And it was a great character. The demise of the character was unfortunate in DS9 ultimately, but we can only hope that Kern in his new identity has remained happy and untouched by Worf's disgrace. Not so notable, of course, as the Alpha Herogen he played in Voyager, which again, a great but small part for a kind of a lesser villain, but it was a good one. I mean, we got to recognize his Trek work overall. So there it is. There's Trek.
What's great about it too, and I always love talking about this, that I totally agree, Bob. Tony Todd was so strong. You have to be a certain kind of actor to work through that much makeup. You've got to be good. You've got to have a good voice, a good control of your voice. You have to be able to make up for the fact that, like, I can lift an eyebrow when I talk, but if I've got that much stuff on my face, I can't. So then I have to find other ways of showing I'm skeptical or I'm thinking or whatever I'm doing. You've got to physicalize a lot of things that the makeup takes away from you. And Tony Todd was amazing at that. Already a good actor, but you put a bunch of stuff on him, he's still a great actor. And
even better because he has to act through the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there are we always talk about Jeffrey Combs. You could put anything on Jeffrey Combs. You could put a 200-ton weight on top of him. He would still find a way to act and still find a way to be amazing.
And of course, Tony was also very prominent in my favorite genre, horror.
Yes.
And I think people remember him best in that genre from Candyman.
Oh, let me get you that one.
So we'll get John a moment. There we go. So there he is, and pretty damn menacing. I mean, what he did to poor Virginia Madsen there, it's very, very disturbing and just a nightmarish, hellish character.
Can
And
I
done
just
so
tell
well.
you, as everybody, I always say this, I avoid horror. I've never seen it.
Well, I don't know, John. I mean, it's awesome,
Yeah.
especially the very first one.
Oh wow.
But I'm not going to sit here and say that you'll enjoy it in some sense. I mean,
Maybe.
hey, there's Retro. There's Tiburon.
Tiburon, El Tiburon is with us.
Came in just the right time.
Just exactly the right time. Just as we got to your genre, Tiburon. Yeah, we're talking some horror work. And of course, not the only horror work that Tony did.
No. As a matter of fact, we can move on to what he did in the Final Destination series.
There we go.
Where he played William Bloodworth. But he also, seems like that might be okay. He played a detective of some kind, but he really was Death. It just never said so. It said, "Oh, you guys cheated Death, so I'm coming after you."
Oh,
I got to tell you, I love this series. I think
Yeah.
the concept is just so wonderful. I think there's been 5 of them. I forget which one he missed. He wasn't in one, and they brought him right back because it just wasn't the same without him.
Right.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Tiburon says, watch the first Candyman, skip the rest. Candyman haunts cholos in East LA in one of the sequels.
That may be worth watching for humor aspects, but no, he's definitely the most threatening and just horrific in the very first. Absolutely.
Now, there is a horror film that I have seen, and I forgot that Tony Todd was in it. And it is this guy right here.
Yes, the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead, a film that many thought at the time, it's like, why in the world would they remake this? It was just, the original was so perfect in 1968, but he played the Ben character, and I got to say, the improvements, of course, they modernized it.
Yeah.
Barbara's no longer the little whimpering girl, laying in the corner, and he's not the totally abusive, frantic guy. So they really brought these performances up to date, and to great effect, I think, because she's a stronger character, and he's very much a strong character, but just tempered with a little bit of smarts and gumption. So it was just so heartbreaking when we saw him at the very end, as we see over there on the right, his ultimate fate.
Yeah. Now that was Tiburon's pointing out that was Savini's Night of the Living Dead. Tom Savini directed that one.
He did. He directed this one.
So cool.
George Romero was a producer, but this was Savini's remake.
I love that I know who Savini is. I actually really enjoyed Dawn Till Dusk. And he's not the biggest role, but it's a great role for Tom Savini.
Now, John, I have to correct you on one minor point.
Yeah.
If it was Dawn Till Dusk, that means the vampires couldn't come out.
Dusk Till Dawn. My dyslexia shows up in the weirdest places. It really does. Chris brings up a good point. Are we going over an hour today? We're trying not to. So
maybe a few minutes, but we'll get it all in there. But I guess the last one you can bring up, John, is the last one, which is Captain Darrow in The Rock. A smaller part.
Did I miss that one?
Yeah, if you did, no big deal. I mean, it wasn't much of a graphic, but but he just played a kind of a straightforward, no nonsense cop in that one. It's just another example of his range.
Yeah.
Because think about it, we saw him today as Jake Sisko in The Visitor and all these other parts, and I just touched on the tip of the iceberg of what he did over the course of his career. I mean, he never stopped working. Yes, there he is. 69 when he passed away recently, and just a huge resume of great parts and great roles. So, Mr. Todd, you will be missed.
I was reading something somebody wrote on social media. I can't remember who it was. They said they had worked with Tony Todd, and he was one of the most humble, not bossy, not full of himself actors that he'd ever met, and that is unusual for an actor.
Yes.
And he also said the thing that people didn't know about Tony was he was so normal. He's just a normal guy. There wasn't anything scary or intimidating or deep or dark about his soul. He was just a normal guy, and he was really funny. And that's how your friends talk about you. And what a delightful person you must be to be remembered that way. So,
well, I mean, looking at him here is just one of his photos, and I just get look at this. He's not posing for the camera. He's just
Yeah.
happy and loving life, and it shows in this picture.
You know what that quality is? That's just being there, being present. It's so hard for so many actors to do. They have to create drama. They have to create some kind of craziness around themselves. And some people just are. Some people don't have to work at it. They just are. And I love that about them.
John, we can skip, of course, the tidbits. I think we covered all the tidbits I had anyway in our discussion at this point, but I just don't want to miss this one. I do want to point out that the title character of the Visitor was played by Rachel Robinson, who is Andrew Robinson's daughter, who plays Garrick on the show.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Garrick's daughter. She's really good too. I like.
I mean, it's a short,
but
vital role in this. I mean, without the Visitor, we would have had no story. So
I don't have any problem at all with the nepotism of this because
of course not. If the talent's there, why not?
Yeah. So what an absolutely perfect way to put that together. Bob says the reporter in the first Night of the Living Dead was Bill Cardell, campy host of my favorite kidhood show in Pittsburgh, Chiller Theater.
Chiller Theater.
Did we? I feel like maybe I'd read that at some point because we did do Night of the Living Dead on our other show, Retro Rangers, at the beginning of October. And so I learned all about it, and I finally got to see it for the first time. So if you ever want to look up,
you loved it, John. You know you did.
I did. Actually, I did. It was tremendous. Let's start talking about our other things that we're doing. Now, next week on Retro Trekkers, we'll be watching Twilight, one of the most beloved of the episodes of Enterprise. Looking forward.
A lot of people consider this episode to be Enterprise's Sydney on the Edge of Forever. It's just that great. And what's interesting about it is it's planted right in the middle of a season-long serialized story arc. So we'll be talking about how that worked and how successful it ended up being.
Absolutely. Tomorrow on our show, Retro Rangers, which airs on a different channel because we're always trying to not crash this one. I don't have a... I thought I had a thing for it. I don't. No, that's our regular channel, Weber Internet thingy on YouTube. But you can find on Facebook. I'll try to get the link out on the other ones. It's Retro Rangers HQ on YouTube. And you can join us and our good friend Chris Regan, great comedy writer, and we will be looking at various science fiction and fantasy by Irwin Allen, and we'll also watch an episode of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea starring Vincent Price called The Deadly Dolls. It's terrible.
The only thing that makes me sad right now is that this is the last time I can see the John puppet with his beard.
Oh, hey.
No, I can see him next Saturday. No, this is tomorrow. Never mind. I'm sorry. This is the last time.
And coming up this week on Mr. Weber's Webo Mystery, it's going to be a pre-recorded show, my wife tells me.
Oh, okay. We were wondering about that on Thursday when we were watching the last one.
I can't do it live. We'll be having dinner. But we will be having a listening party of The Amazing Nero Wolfe. There's only one episode of it available, the Shakespeare Folio, that we shall be enjoying. So join me Thursday night for that. You can get more information basically on you can find it at Hello John Weber. And I guess we are breaking an hour. There's no way we're not breaking an hour. If you
what's a few minutes between friends, John?
You want to go? Wait a second. I pressed the button. Why didn't it happen? Come on now. Where are you? Press the button. Boy, my computer is just giving up the ghost here. My computer is so done with me. Look at that. It's not loading.
We'll just have to sing live the closing theme song.
I'm trying to get my Joe Townsend.
Oh, we have a commercial. Oh, here it is. Here's my lighter.
He'll hook you up.
Love those two guys.
It's just been better. It's better with age. Much like your host. Okay. I think that might be it. So next week, Twilight, we will be here. We will be happy to join you for that. And you want to say goodbye there, Mr. Townsend?
Why not? Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for what turned out to be a really very fun episode. Although, again, missing Tony Todd already. No, but there's so much you can see him in. Find it wherever you can and have a watch. And until next time,
that's it, folks. We'll see you next week.
Keep on trucking.
Retro Trackers. Retro Trackers. Capt'n John and Cmdr. Retro Trackers. We love our Star Treks. Retro Trackers. The nerd muscles get to flex. Retro Trackers. Get down with the retro. Retro Trackers. Let's get done. Retro Trackers. Coming back with the recap. Retro Trackers. Reviewing has some fun. Recap, review, retro, recap, review, trackers, recap, review, retro, recap, review, trackers. Recap, review.